Hello and welcome back, Paxians. I'm Altari, the professional gamer, and this is another gameplay commentary from the Pax Dei Wilderness Alpha, which is due to release to 100,000 players on April 23rd. So, with that being said, today we are going to be going over PvP. In fact, it is such an important conversation topic that there's an entire section committed to it in the Pax Dei official Discord. So for this video, my goal is to really talk through a couple of the things that we're trying to show, give just a live or semi-live commentary on everything that is going on in this footage. And yeah, we are going to go ahead and get into this. If you haven't done so already, like this video if it's the type of content you enjoy, share it with any of your friends who might be interested in Pax Dei, and subscribe to this channel so that you can get notified when we come out with any new footage. If this is something that is interesting to you and you haven't seen our PvP interview with the developers yet, or the combat one, we have both of those. It's over, I think, 50 minutes combined between the combat and the PvP interviews, so you should definitely check those out. They're linked down below. But let's go ahead and get into commenting on some of this PvP footage. So in the first part of the video here, we wanted to capture kind of a typical experience that you might experience when you're going to get some pure iron. And in this particular circumstance, we are a third party that is rolling up on a group of players that is fighting another group of players over an iron ore node. And I decided to just go in for an easy target. We have an archer in light armor that we are able to isolate here. I landed a shield bash, which is something that we are going to be using a lot in this footage. Now I go over to fight Phoenix and Firm and try and get a favorable shield bash here to see if I could do some damage. Phoenix is definitely under armored, so is Alark, but now it's a 3v1 and it's just a whale fest on my face. So I wanted to get out of the ocean. The best way to do that is to climb up on top of this block to create some distance. Of course, PvP players a lot of the times are short-minded strategizing, so the second that I got up and out of sight, I suddenly became invisible, but I couldn't stay invisible for long, and I decided to dive headfirst into a 1v4, and that ended as anyone would have expected. You don't need an oracle at Delphi to tell you that you're going to die when you go into a 4v1. Now here, we decided to go for a more fair fight, and this is Dilly and Alark teaming up against Firm and myself. And for this one, what we were trying to do is get them to either group up or stay separated. And in this particular case, we were able to keep them pretty well separated for a decent amount of time, which meant that if they were going to be doing damage, it was going to be either to Firm or myself, not both of us. And we were trying to focus them into a place where we could do damage to both of them to get that efficiency. And look, they fell for the trap, and it ended as anyone would expect. There was just way too much damage being done. We were able to get a good old shield bash stun out there for good measure. Now, in this one, we had a couple of instances where we wanted to do some 1v1 fighting. And for this one, we had Long John Silver as well as Firm, and we wanted to get just some cinematic shots for this duel. One thing that you will notice is that they're switching a lot between their weapons. What they're trying to do is get a feel for what weapon combo is going to work really well against their opponent. They're actively trying to block each other, make sure that they're getting that nice stagger animation like what you just saw with Firm. And this is something that is going to be critical for PvP fights. Whenever that stagger animation is occurring, the attacker's also suffering a little bit of stamina damage, which means you can't just continually attack someone who is blocking. You have to play into a little bit more strategy. Now, for this footage, we did a little bit of a line battle type engagement where we had some archers on a hill shooting down, just trying to get some volleys off on the enemy as they approach. Now, I would imagine this would be far more effective if you had a lot more bows and a lot more opponents, because a lot of those arrows would actually hit their targets, but not in this case. And the battlefield breaks into a huge chaotic mess. I get a little bit of blood rage and attack my own arrow shooting teammate, and now it's just completely devolved into a free-for-all. I switch over to my two-handed mace and just start batting people. Unfortunately, I'm going to be getting 3v1'd here, and that is just unfortunate that I got a shield bash as well, and I die. Now, the funny thing in this particular footage is how many people manage to also die on my body and almost at the same time. This turns into quite a violent mess, all in this very tiny little space. Whatever player goes by here and loots all of them is going to be in for a nice, decent reward. Now, this fight here is between Dilly and myself, and you'll see that we're actively switching between a lot of different weapons. And again, that's because we're trying to feel out, one, what weapons we like and what types of combos we like. Eventually, all of these weapons are going to have different skills that are associated with them in terms of like the control left click or the control right click that's down there. And right now, the only one that's really in game is two things. There's the Hateful Strike, which is on a sword, and that's a threat generating skill. And then there's also Shield Bash, which is something that you just saw me just fail at using. Out of my failure, I decided it was good to just start throwing punches and throw everything else on the ground. That's not a good strategy. I don't recommend doing that. But then I was able to swap over to my greatsword, but not in enough time. You did notice that Dilly stopped swinging there for a second, and that was because he ran out of stamina. Now, in this fight, I just told everyone who showed up to our little PvP event that I'm hiding in the woods somewhere, come find me and kill me. And unfortunately for Alark, I was able to find him first, and he was running around with his spell hands out, and I just start trying to dispatch him as quickly as possible. And look, I was able to do it, but then I knew that I had a lot of people coming at me. I saw a fireball coming at me as well. I put Bessie in line with me, and the fireball, since it is a physical entity, if someone else comes in contact with it, they are going to get hit by it instead. And now I'm being attacked by a bunch of different things. I tried to get some of the NPCs to start attacking all of the players as well to try and loosen things up, and you can see that that happened with great effect. And now I'm just trying to heal myself up a little bit before I get bullied by a bunch of players, and there was not a lot of damage coming from that player. They are naked. It looks like they're using a bunch of wooden items. I'm trying to chase them down, but it's not really working. This direwolf is just churning out damage to a lot of different players. I'm trying to get some kills here, but it's becoming really hard to outkill this direwolf because the NPCs right now do a lot of damage and they're very scary. So now that the player is running, I'm trying to get a fireball kill, but that direwolf was just able to do them in really dirty. I fortunately was able to block that direwolf, or else I would have died there. The other player was unfortunate and they received it. We have now a lot of people realizing that this entire group is going to get wiped if they don't take care of that wolf instead, but I am an agent of chaos, so I decided I'm just going to attack the spellcaster that was removing the aggro from me, and now I am running away because I need to get myself healed up a bit. But what you'll notice is, other than the direwolf that's attacking me as well, there is going to start being some arrows that are being inserted into my body in a very offensive way. And here's the first one, a direct headshot. There's an arrow in my head, and now there are two more arrows in my rear end, and that spells the end for Altari. Now, in this video footage, what we were trying to show is that fireball spam isn't something that's altogether too all-powerful. Long John Silver was the willing sacrifice, and it's important to note that he's not blocking in this circumstance. If he was blocking, a majority of this damage would not be getting done, and instead it would be his stamina, and that would have given him some time to get some cover or get some friends in. So while it is definitely a powerful ability, it's not an all-powerful ability. In this fight, I wanted to do a 3v1 with a couple of different players wearing different levels of armor. We have some pretty basic armor and then some more intense armor. And in this engagement, my strategy was to try and isolate the person who had the most armor, and that was firm. I did use their teammates' fireball there to hurt them, and it's important to also note that the current version of the alpha that this is being recorded on, there was a little bit of a bug when it came to teaming up and getting team damage. I don't expect for fireballs to actually do damage to teammates in the future, or if it is, that isn't something that was actually made a feature or an apparent feature for this. I think that's just a bug, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. I'm pretty happy at this point, though. I was able to kill the bad guy and Firm, and now I'm trying to finish off Alark, but unfortunately, I just did not get a hit off on that shield bash. Here's another image of us just going through a very large line battle. We had already engaged in the front lines, and now the fights have broken into several different smaller fights. You can see one team is already isolating some of the players, and they've been able to get a couple of kills, and now there's just some crazy swinging that is going on here. We do have some blocking that is going on, as well as some lunging combo animations there, which is really helping that spear player land some damage. I am going to try and revive Zito. It's important to note that the revive animation has changed significantly. It takes, I think, around 12 seconds for you to get all the way through it, and I don't think you can actually cast it if you're being actively damaged or attacked. They'll still do the animation, but it's not actually going to respawn the player, or if it did, it just didn't work in Zito's case here. Now, I was trying to get some separation, so I shield bashed Stella. I was trying to just isolate Phoenix so I could try and take care of him, and that worked to limited effect, but fortunately I was able to kill the very under-armored Phoenix. That has nothing against his skill, that's everything against his armor class. In that case, he just had really no chance when it came to fighting someone with almost 100 armor on them. Now, unfortunately, I was just getting hit from a couple of different angles, and I wasn't able to survive here. But now we do have a very interesting 2v1 fight here. We have Alark and Dilly teaming up against Firm, but unfortunately, the team damage was still turned on, and Alark just absorbed all of the spear damage from Dilly. Now we just have Firm going up against Dilly, and you'll see here a lot of the importance of the shield bashing in the current iteration of PvP, as well as the staggering mechanic for when you block. So everyone's taking stamina damage whenever you get staggered like that. You're taking stamina damage from blocking, you're also taking stamina damage from the alternative there, and it did end for that was Dilly. Then here we have another 2v2 fight. This is between Zito and myself, and Firm and Stella. And in this fight, we're just trying to isolate each other and make sure that we're keeping the damage spread across the way. I have a lot of the focus right now, so Zito's able to creep in behind and start doing some damage. We are able to land a shield bash here, and that really helped us. But now, since I have a little bit of damage, I let Zito go in to keep some face contact, and I'm just trying to pepper some damage in on the outside without getting damaged, to which he then switches back out so that he can do some range damage while I go in for the kill. Looked like Stella was running low on stamina there, which is why they weren't attacking. Now, here, we wanted to show an example of what being outnumbered against a bunch of ranged users was going to do for players. This is something that a lot of people were talking about in terms of how bows are going to really have an advantage in combat. And while I do think that in some very specific use cases, bows have an advantage, the one thing that this video shows is that it's really, really difficult to actually use bows and arrows for PvP fights. There's a lot of unpredictability, and the projectiles are relatively slow. So it's easy for you to see them coming, especially when you're this far away. You can pretty much just dodge them as best as you can, and you'll be able to at least dodge a couple of them. That's all being said, that they don't do enough damage where they're able to break through your block characteristics. So I'm only taking 7 or 8 damage, and that's when I'm not blocking. When I do block, I take no damage. So I think this goes to show that while archery is something that can be powerful, you can also survive against 3 archers that are just shooting you non-stop for many minutes. And this, I eventually stopped and just decided, okay, I'm going to just punch him and see what happens. But then we did want to kind of reset things and see what would happen in an actual combat situation between all of us. So that's where we're at. We have 3 bow users pit up against me with just a shield and a sword. And we do have a consecrated ground that is there. That's just giving me a temporary regeneration buff. It also can block some fireball spells, or at least that's what we've noticed in this current version of the alpha. And what I'm trying to do here is just close the gap between all of these bow users and see if I can get an easy kill over here. And fortunately, I was able to get Alark. He is in some pretty low armor and had some relatively low health from his consumables, so I was able to get him down pretty quickly. Now, I'm trying to get Dilly, but I realized really quickly that he was going to be moving around a lot too much than what I could handle, and I was just going to be getting free shots off on Firm. So I'm trying to keep them separated, and what I was trying to do is get behind Firm, use him kind of like a body block for the arrows that were coming in, but that just wasn't going to happen. So I was able to kill one person. They were relatively under armored, but that goes to show you that you do still have a chance, and really you shouldn't be engaging in fights where you're severely outnumbered. But even if you are, if you play your cards right, you still have a possibility of surviving as well. Now in this one, we have footage of Alark and myself fighting. We are using Shield Bash here, and you can really see the true power of having a Shield Bash ability. It just gives you the opportunity to just wail on your opponent nonstop, or in this case, heal yourself up to give yourself a little bit more of a boost and see if that takes you over for actually being able to finish this fight off. Now, I'm being pretty aggressive here, and I do know that there is a Shield Bash with my name on it, and there it is. So that's another 5 seconds of just straight damage that I'm going to face tank there. They are already fully aware that Shield Bash is kind of overpowered at this moment. There are a lot of other cross-play and like counter features that just aren't in the game yet, but those are things that are coming. So I know many of you are going to be really worried seeing that Shield Bash and seeing the duration on it. That is something that is temporary. There's going to be more skills that are constantly getting added, and there's going to be some other dynamics that are going to go in to try and mitigate a lot of the stunning that is happening right now and allow for some more counterplay. Now in this fight, Dilly was damaged pretty quickly and decided to switch over to bows, try his luck there. Firm decided to reciprocate, and now it is a full-blown ranged duel, or at least it was until Dilly just ate an arrow to the gut there. Now here what we're trying to test is the different swinging arcs for a weapon like the greatsword, and you can see that depending on what part of the combo, you're going to be getting a different amount of damage. You're also going to be getting a different distance from the player and how that swinging arc works. I don't think that arch way that the player is swinging in is really finalized yet. It seems really weird that you're able to hit far on your left and your right, but not in your center. But I'm sure those are things that are going to get tuned in the future. Now here we have a shield and sword against a great sword. It is one of my favorite weapons to use. Unfortunately, there's just no skills associated with it right now. And Shield Bash really is king when it comes to PvP, because getting a free 5 seconds to either heal yourself or to just lay damage on can pretty much settle the battle right then and there. Now, I did happen to fat finger that right there, and I wasn't trying to actually cast that spell, but things happen. Now we have a spear on spear fight. These are really fun. I just like how spears feel. It really feels like you're able to lunge, and they have some relatively quick attacks. Spears historically were really, really useful. They were commonly used with a lot of militaries because of how useful they were. And likewise in Pax Dei, they're also useful. They're robust. They're able to get some distance on some enemies, but they're also able to attack very, very quickly, which is very useful. Now, in this fight, it is now a great sword doing the attacking, and he's trying to do some healing, but unfortunately for him, I am just able to out damage him. And I just wanted to demonstrate that there is a take-all feature in PvP. It does pull from the top left first and withdrawals from that. I did give all of that gear back. In this fighting we were all doing, it was to do the recording, and if we kept on taking each other's gear, literally it would have stopped happening very, very quickly because we only brought one set of gear. So that would have been really unfortunate. Now in this one, you have Alark and myself. We're fighting. We do have a couple of shield bashes that are thrown in there, and you'll see that I was able to get that shield bash off on him. And then once I noticed that he ran out of shield bash potential there, I really needed to push the advantage, and unfortunately I just didn't take advantage quickly enough, and now I was able to get in a situation where I needed to push harder than I really should have, and that got me killed. Here is a fight now between two-handed weapons. We have the two-handed maul plus the two-handed greatsword, and we are just doing a fight to the death here. And both of these weapons have a lot of different characteristics to them, and they're only going to get more and more unique as time goes on. You can see that the combat animations are different. The greatsword has a 3-hit combo. I think the Great Maul or whatever that Alark is using has a 5-hit combo, and one of them looks like they should be staggering the opponent. It's like a headbutt, not headbutt, but a gut punch style hilt butt. That's what I was looking for, kind of thing. Now unfortunately I ran out of stamina, which means I'm not allowed to attack, I'm not allowed to block, and that's really sucky when you're in a duel. Now in this fight, what you're going to see is two exceptionally stubborn individuals who really want to kill each other with a bow and arrow, but it is very difficult to kill each other at range. I'm trying to lead my shots here, but there's also some dropping, and what you'll notice is that that circle, while it is getting smaller, it is a relatively big circle, and that circle is essentially an indicator of everywhere that your arrows can potentially land. So it is still very possible to be missing your target, and you'll see a lot of those misses are happening now. But I'm also able to get a decent number of shots off on Alark. I do switch over to a fireball just because I do know I'm running low on arrows, and I want to try and conserve them as best I can to try and kill him. And then a fireball comes out, and that is really why I'm trying to pull out some weapons to block here. I do try and do it again with another shield block, but that shield just did not come to the rescue, and it's back to the races on getting these shots off. So that is all of the PvP footage that we have for this week. We also just released a new set of the interview series for the Pax Dei Wilderness Alpha that is on PvP. So if you're interested in the PvP content that you saw in this video and you have some more questions, feel free to hop over to that video and you can hear what the devs have to say about PvP. We also have a section on combat, but in the future we're going to be coming out with an interview section on the exploration and dungeons as well as crafting, and that's all in a lead up to the release of Pax Dei's second alpha, which is being called the Pax Dei Wilderness Alpha, and that's going to be coming out on April 23rd. You remember that you have until April 15th to go over to playpaxdei.com and register to play in the alpha. So until next time, y'all, don't forget, hit that subscribe button so that you can get notified for any new content that we post. Like this video if it's the type of content you enjoy, and share with any of your friends who might be interested in Pax Dei. Until the next video, I'm Altari the Professional Gamer.